All right, let's get back to Afghanistan, where we're going to review with two members of Congress, Congressman Andrew Clyde and Doug Lamborn. Join us live. They're both on the Homeland Security Committee. Congressman Clyde, I'll go to you first. What are you hearing about this?
This is a disaster, Carl. I tell you what, this could have been avoided if we would have had a proper plan in place, but we obviously have no leadership at the top, and that is evident by what has been going on. So this is an absolute disgrace for our country. It is going to become even more dangerous in the days ahead. And so I fear for our troops that are there right now. And we're in a very tenuous position right now. We are giving Afghanistan back to the Taliban, to those people who gave safe haven to Al-Qaeda. Remember, Al-Qaeda is a part of the Taliban. Mm-hmm. So I think that we're going to have problems going ahead, especially on the Homeland Security front, because we have an open southern border still, and our president is doing nothing about that. But we have a very dangerous situation going forward, and it is the making of our president and his national security team and his top military brass.
Yeah, and Congressman Lamborn, one of the things that I'm really concerned about here is just what your colleague just made, which is that ISIS-K, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, the rank and file of these guys is pretty fluid. Like, we know for a fact that sometimes they shift to one group or another based on one being too radical or not radical enough. So the rank and file fighters of these groups are often intertwined. They know each other in some cases. It's the upper echelon that might be trying to make the distinction. But what do we do with groups like that, especially when we're handing over lists to the Taliban asking for assistance?
Well, handing over the list was a horrible decision. And I have Afghans that we're in touch with through my office that are just devastated by that. And they wonder if their families and loved ones are now going to be targeted, if those become kill lists. You know, like Andrew was just saying, this is a failure of leadership at the very top. Mm-hmm. I think that the military and intelligence community advice has been basically pretty sound, but it's been ignored by the commander-in-chief, Joe Biden. He has rejected and is stubborn about doing this Tuesday artificial deadline where everything has to be out, every single personnel that we have over there in the military. And that is something that we should never have allowed in the first place. Hmm. They have to be there as long as it takes to get all Americans out safely at a minimum.
Yeah, and Congressman Clyde, in what world have we ever allowed the enemy to dictate our terms on the battlefield?
A world that ends in failure. That's exactly the world. Yeah. And I agree with Doug here. The August 31st should not be an arbitrary deadline. We are going to leave Americans in country. We are going to have another Tehran. I believe that's what's going to happen. And this is an unconscionable failure of leadership from the top. We have to convince President Biden that we need to stay there as long as it takes to get every solitary American citizen out, or we're going to be going right back into Afghanistan, mm-hmm. in my opinion. Yeah, because we're going to have to save those Americans.
Yeah, no, it's a sticky situation for sure. And Congressman Lamborn, you're on the House Armed Services Committee. We had this drone strike last night, but the problem is all the people that we rely on for that ground intel, we're kind of turning our backs on, or they're leaving. We're not going to have anybody in the region anymore. So what are we going to do going forward?
Well, exactly. We've been making this point for months that the over-the-horizon approach is not going to be effective. Well, we're losing our ground intelligence, mm-hmm. like you just pointed out. The drones have to come from many hours away, so they'll only be able to stay in country over a potential target for a limited period of time, and it's just not going to work. We're going to be much less effective. But President Biden is rejecting all the sound advice that he's been given. And I'm afraid that this stubborn, if not pig-headed approach toward leadership, where he rejects all sound advice, is going to be devastating in the future. What if he takes that same approach to Iran, let's say?
China.
Doing an agreement with Iran when it's a horrible agreement, everyone says, no, don't go into this agreement. But just because he is so stubborn about it, he'll go into a bad agreement. His leadership style is going to be dangerous for the world and for our country.
Elections have consequences. Congressman Andrew Clyde, Doug Lamborn, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it.
All right.